So I've been pretty lenient with everything that I've been seeing about the Spyro Reignited Trilogy up to now. Like, some things that bothered a lot of people don't really bother me so much, like the Egg Thief's laugh and the Twilight Harbor. Honestly, like, that does annoy me, but because it's guns and it's 2018, I can't help but forgive them for that, so it comes from a place of empathy on the part of someone who's creating content for people to consume, especially children. And even Idle Springs looked great. It was only till I saw the Colossus footage that I started to my gears started turning a bit more, which is why I wish they would stop showing us stuff and just give us the game, because now I'm like, oh, I'm starting to see things I don't like. I'd rather just be disappointed and like while I'm playing the game, and that way I can still like just throw all my criticisms off to the side, at least till I like let's play it or something. But Colossus is an awesome level from Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, or Gateway to Glimmer, depending on what version you own. And they released some footage of the sick level. A lot of it looks and sounds great. The environment looks awesome. If you scrub through the video like I'm about to do right now, you can see like certain things like the grass looks amazing. The rock effects, I think some people are criticizing the skybox, but I freaking love it. A lot of cool things, like they really play up the hockey, like the guys have the hockey sticks, the statues. I think that's a great touch. I can't wait to see what they look like when they're possessed. Hockey memorabilia all over the place. Look at that angry face from the monks. One of the coolest things about the original game is the juxtaposition, because if you remember, the hockey rink is kind of behind it all, and throughout the level there is no hockey memorabilia. So you're going through this place with these guys who are supposed to be all zen and shit, and they're like, why, yeah, and then you go into the back, and then you're like, oh, these guys are playing like the roughest game on the planet. I'll never forget what they said. He was like, oh, we find hockey to be a peaceful sport, or something like that.
We have found that hockey is a peaceful and calming sport.
The juxtaposition was always great, and so it's funny because now that you see all this hockey memorabilia, like I can imagine the kids who never played Spyro 2 are gonna be like, well, why the heck is all this hockey stuff here? We're on a mountain with monks. It doesn't make any sense. And then they're gonna go find that area and be like, oh, these guys are crazy. And I think that's going to be really interesting, and it's cool because it doubles for us, the nostalgic players, because we know that hockey is a thing in Colossus. So by seeing all this stuff, we're like, ah, I gotcha. So it's a cool detail, because it would make no sense if they removed all the hockey memorabilia and made it exactly like the original, because that was appropriate for the time. Like, in the year we grew up, PlayStation games were like crude, and platformers, like, they didn't make so much sense with all the polygonal stuff and the blockiness. Now people will see the hockey and be like, oh, and they'll connect the dots, whereas we'll be like, oh, hey, because it just doesn't work for our generation. Like, what worked for our generation, having nothing and then hockey in your face, people would just, I think kids now would just be like, well, that came out of nowhere, and they wouldn't like it. It worked for us, but it wouldn't work for them, and I think adding the hockey features to like the statues and stuff is a really cool touch. More detail all around though, because if you look around inside, it looks so like warm and cozy in there, and I remember it was very stark and icy in the original when the guy's like, hey, look what I can do! And yeah, there's a reason I'm quoting them like they were in the original game. We're getting to that. Nevertheless, the environments look great. I just like the details. We got the grass and the snow. It's a good mix. It's like a springtime mountain. It's a really cool feel, and they got that lovely color for the skybox. It all ties together really nice. The Rams look great. The monks look great. I think they look awesome. A lot of people are criticizing that they're palette swaps of the guys in Idle Springs, and I'm like, they've always been. Or did I say anything about the Yeti? The Yeti looks badass. I can't wait to see. I hope they take that model and put it in Spyro 3 when Bentley does the boxing match with him. That's gonna be great, just punching that guy in the face. I love it. Now that I've gushed, we can talk about the things that I don't like very much. The monks, I think they look great, and that's the only thing. They look great. Everything about them sound-wise is awful. I'm being really, really mean, because part of it is empathetic. I understand what it's like to create a product, create entertainment. What they did was a choice. What they did was an aesthetic choice. They made the monks sound very different than they did in Spyro 2, which is something I personally do not like at all. What they did, though, was a choice that is very cohesive, and it makes sense, and the theming is appropriate. The monks in Spyro 2, at least in my experience playing it, it was always funny because they're supposed to be monks and they're zen and they're chill, which they are for the most part, but it's comical when you go in and the first guy's like,
a Yeti rampaging around our home.
But then the other guy's like,
A Yeti has has been rampaging around our home.
And it's like, I don't know how you feel about this. Like, it's strange with me. I understand that they chose a very specific chill direction for these monks to speak, for the voice actor to deliver all these monks' lines. But it's something that there's a heart in the original dialogue that the delivery of the voice acting, it's not the dialogue, it's the voice acting, that I really liked about the original. Like, there's a monk who's like, hey, look what I can do.
Hey, look what I can do.
And then he chants and the thing rises. But it's really kind of endearing and funny for the original game to be like, hey, look what I can do.
Hey, look what I can do.
And he's like super proud of himself, and he's supposed to be like all chill or whatever. But I like that they kind of break the form of what they look like. The chanting. Yes, so I don't even know what it sounds like. I need to like hear it again. That poor thing's face. Okay, but yeah, so yeah, a few things with the chanting. So they're going like a wah 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 wah, which I'm sure is great. It doesn't beat It just doesn't. Well, like, yeah, come on, like, everyone, like, look at my playlist on my episode of the Spyro 2 Let's Play. That name of that episode that's the name of the episode. Like, it strikes hard with people. So the devs really missed the boat on pandering to the nostalgia, which they've been doing a great job with. Like, they've been doing so good with pandering to nostalgic players of the game. So it's really odd that didn't strike out so much to them, because I know they're fans as well. It didn't strike out so much to them that they needed that. It's kind of like the Egg Thief. Like, the chant is my Egg Thief thing. Like, but this one breaks it for me, because it's, you know, it's the whole thing. Like, and that's what it was. That's it's like it's on par with changing the dialogue, in my opinion, which they did anyway.
You should kill that Yeti.
You should torch that Yeti.
I understand that they censored it, and I think the original voice acting just slipped through, so I don't mind so much that he says torch that Yeti, but what I do care about is the delivery. You know how many times I replayed that monk's dialogue? You could just hit triangle repeatedly, and that one little bit, even though... It's a memory with me and my older sister. We would play this game, and I would just hit triangle again and again, and you'd be like, even though, like, I don't know, it's a dumb thing from me, but there's something about that. There's something there. There's something about the way that line was delivered that made little kid me really enamored with it. I don't think the kids playing this game are gonna be, like, repeatedly hitting, even though. Like, there's something much less comical and cartoony and goofy, and by my opinion, less remarkable about the dialogue. I think it's, again, a really good, and it's a solid aesthetic choice to make them all sound like this and be really, really cool with everything that's going on, even though there's a Yeti in our home, right? You know, there's a weird thing, like, something about the fact that they're supposed to be chill, but they talk like this, and they speak of violence, and they play hockey, and they're like, I think you should kill that Yeti. Like, there's a mark being missed that I can't really articulate very well, and it's largely due to nostalgia blindness. That's why I keep reiterating the fact that, yes, it was an aesthetic choice, and I think it's gonna work for the market. I think it's gonna be less funny, though, and it's gonna come across as less goofy and less unique to this generation than it was to us. But I'm wondering, like, I guess that maybe that's not a priority, because it only really would pay off for us. They're not gonna remake it a second time, you know, when the kids who are playing the remake grow up, right? Like, I don't know if that's foreseeable. So it's their voice and the chanting, and oh yeah, the freaking visual, like, what is that thing? Like, why? That's something that bothers me, because, like, it's not necessary. There was something cool about the simplicity of having them just do the animation and sing or chant or whatever, and the stuff would just move in the level. It would move up, it would move down, it'd be in and out, like, they would just chant. And there's a real nitpicky thing from me. The one in the house who's like, hey, look what I can do, and I always remembered him because I love the way that line is delivered in the original. he does the thing, he does the chant, and you see the little blurb, and it goes up, and if you look at the footage, it goes back down and it goes back up, but he stops. What the original game did, and I think this was a really nice touch, and I don't know why they got rid of it, but they had him repeat the animation. Like, every time it went up, he would go, why I am, and then it would go down, because he stopped. And then he would go, why I am, and it would go back up again. I knocked my sunglasses over. That's how passionate I am. So little things like that, like the world building, like just the idea that why would he chant once and then the thing would be forever enchanted and going up and down? Like, it makes sense that he would have to exert the effort to bring it back up each time. That's a real nitpick from me. All in all, I think it looks great. The music is amazing. Like, I don't know how they fucked up the why I am when they got Bossa Blah.
Remember, Hunter?
Again, these are the weird sounds that stood out to my childhood brain. It sounds so ridiculous, but Bossa Blah, like, that's one of the things that you would just hear, especially if you just kind of chilled around and putzed around in the game, like, and just listened to the music as it was playing. Like, things like that, it makes sense because I believe they're using the same samples that Stuart Copeland used, which I'm like, so clearly on one end you think the sounds do have nostalgia, at least on the music department, but why can't we do it with the sound effects? And I'm starting to understand the Egg Thief gripe a little bit more now. Like, those sounds are like, Spyro is very visually charming, but there's the sound effects, I'm realizing more and more, do have a huge nostalgia factor. I'm being nice, and I'm not even talking about the vases making the sound or the crisp gem collection noises. It's understandable that Spyro 1, it's a softer noise because it was softer in that game. But in Spyro 2 and 3, like, it's really crisp and it makes you feel good to collect all those gems. Zoe is the only other thing I can talk about, and she sounds great.
Yaks are too big to be charged. Yaks are too big to be charged.
I did some research. I don't know if it's actually Tara Strong, but everyone seems to be convinced that it is, so I'm like, cool. If it is Tara Strong, it looked like she voiced Zoe in Hero's Tale. I'm not too crazy about her design, to be totally honest. I'm fine with it being different because I'm like, okay, I get the aesthetic. She looks a lot more like a Disney fairy, you know. She's got like the little stance with the turned out feet and the zipped legs. Like, I get that. It's very Disney looking, which is these kids are the Frozen kids, you know. Like, I get that. That's an understandable aesthetic choice, just like the other choices that I don't agree with. But this one doesn't bother me because she's not the most important part of the game to me. However, I can't lie, her voice sounds incredible. The voice actress is doing amazing, be it Tara Strong or somebody else. The Zap, I get that it's not the same Zap, and I do think the sound effect and the lightning bolts had a very strong nostalgic thing for me, but I don't mind it so much. It's kind of interesting. Like, some things I don't get so affected by, but things like the chant I do, so it seems like every nostalgic fan has varying levels of trigger. You know, the Egg Thief thing didn't bother me, the Twilight Harbor thing kind of did a little bit more, the chant really bothers me, Zoe not zapping you right doesn't bother me so much. It's really interesting. I'm curious to what your opinions are. Speaking of your opinions, do comment below. I want to hear all your thoughts. I want to know what you think about the environment, the music, the sound effects. Do you share my thoughts on the monks? Because that's my biggest critical point. I didn't even mention, like, you know, the Yeti looks great, you know, I said that, but the Rams look awesome. I like the Yaks, they got the bounce, right? There are a lot of really great things about this game. I know when I get this game, I'm gonna love it, I'm gonna play it to death, and I'm gonna notice things that will bother me along the way, but I'm expecting that. I can't expect Toys for Bob to jump inside my brain and pull the ideal Spyro experience. That's an unrealistic expectation, which is why I think they should stop releasing stuff and just, like, make us sweat it out. Like, look at that poor Ram. Like, that's how we should feel about the game when it comes out. So we can either look like this or we can look like that. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna end it off here. I want to hear all your thoughts, and just can't wait to talk more Spyro with you. As always, do subscribe and like this video if you like this video, in addition to Spyro content that I will and will not talk about depending on how much it affects me and, you know, makes me think. I'm also a Let's Player, and I'm always playing video games. I'm releasing stuff Mondays through Fridays, and I even have Spyro 1 and 2 fully played through, and a good amount of Spyro 3 backlogged on my channel, so do look for those playlists, and I'll see you in the next one. For now, this is Dave out, peace out, take care.